Thank you, Miss Drea. Thanks for being here and joining Nancy and I. We're going to get started a little bit. Thank you so much, Miss Drea. Hope you're well. Yes, wonderful weekend. Very busy. So this is the 10 scariest poems of all time. Narrated by AI Nancy. Thank you, Mochi J, for recording. We're going to get started in 3 minutes. All right, here we go.
According to Wikipedia, poetry as an oral art form likely predates written text. 1. The earliest poetry is believed to have been recited or sung, employed as a way of remembering oral history, genealogy, and lore. Poetry is often closely related to musical traditions, too, and the earliest poetry exists in the form of hymns, such as the work of Sumerian priestess Enheduanna, and other types of songs such as chants. As such, poetry is a verbal art. Many of the poems surviving from the ancient world are recorded prayers, or stories about religious subject matter, but they also include historical accounts, instructions for everyday activities, love songs, and fiction. Many scholars, particularly those researching the Homeric tradition and the oral epics of the Balkans, suggest that early writing shows clear traces of older oral traditions, including the use of repeated phrases as building blocks in larger poetic units. A rhythmic and repetitious form would make a long story easier to remember and retell, before writing was available as a reminder. Thus many ancient works, from the Vedas, 1500 to 1000 BC, to the Odyssey, 800 to 675 BC, appear to have been composed in poetic form to aid memorization and oral transmission, in prehistoric and ancient societies. 4. Poetry appears among the earliest records of most literate cultures, with poetic fragments found on early monoliths, runestones, and stelae. Even the earliest recorded poetry and tales have elements of horror, fear, and despair, and the archetypes of horror have likely lasted much longer. The vampire archetype, for example, can be traced all the way back to the ancient civilization of Sumer. The vampire-like being a Miku would inhabit the bodies of people who had died violently or who were buried improperly. Welcome to the 10 scariest poems of all time. Chapter 1. The Raven. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here for evermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. So that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you." Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token. And the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning. Soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see, then, what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but, with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door. Perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. Perched, and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven. Ghastly grim and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven nevermore. Much I marvelled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door. Bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther then he uttered, not a feather then he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said nevermore, startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken. "Doubtless," said I, "what it utters is its only stock and store. caught from some unhappy master whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I willed a cushioned seat in front of bird, and bust, and door. Then, upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then, methought, the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee respite, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil. Prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil. Prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden if, within the distant Aidenn, it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend? I shrieked, upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming. And the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. Chapter 2. The Wendigo. For Angela. The Wendigo is a flesh-eating, wintry demon with a man buried deep inside of it. In some Chippewa stories, a young girl vanquishes this monster by forcing boiling lard down its throat, thereby releasing the human at the core of ice. You knew I was coming for you, little one. When the kettle jumped into the fire, towels flapped on the hooks, and the dog crept off, groaning, to the deepest part of the woods. In the hackles of dry brush a thin laughter started up. Mother scolded the food warm and smooth in the pot, and called you to eat. But I spoke in the cold trees. New one, I have come for you, child, hide and lie still. The sumac pushed sour red cones through the air. Copper burned in the raw wood. You saw me drag toward you. Oh, touch me, I murmured, and licked the soles of your feet. You dug your hands into my pale, melting fur. I stole you off, a huge thing in my bristling armor. Steam rolled from my wintry arms, each leaf shivered. From the bushes we passed, until they stood, naked, spread like the clean spines of fish. Then your warm hands hummed over and shoveled themselves full of the ice and the snow. I would darken and spill, all night running, until at last morning broke the cold earth. And I carried you home. a river shaking in the sun. Chapter 3. The Vampire. She rose among us where we lay. She wept, we put our work away. She chilled our laughter, stilled our play, and spread a silence there. And darkness shot across the sky. And once, and twice, we heard her cry, and saw her lift white hands on high, and toss her troubled hair. What shape was this who came to us? With basilisk eyes so ominous, with mouth so sweet, so poisonous, and tortured hands so pale. We saw her wavering to and fro. Through dark and wind we saw her go. Yet what her name was did not know, and felt our spirits fail. We tried to turn away, but still, above we heard her sorrow thrill. And those that slept, they dreamed of ill and dreadful things, of skies grown red with rending flames, and shuddering hills that cracked their frames, of twilights foul with wings, and skeletons dancing to a tune, and cries of children stifled soon, and over all a blood-red moon, a dull and nightmare sighs. They woke, and sought to go their ways, yet everywhere they met her gaze, her fixed and burning eyes. Who are you now? We cried to her. Spirit so strange, so sinister. We felt dead wings above us stir, and in the darkness heard a voice fall, singing, cawing sweet, heavily dropping, though that heat, heavy as honeyed pulses beat, slow word by anguished word, and through the night strange music went, with voice and cry so darkly blent, we could not fathom what they meant, save only that they seemed to thin the blood along our veins, foretelling vile, delirious pains, and clouds divulging blood-red rains, upon a hill undreamed. And this we heard, who dies for me, he shall possess me secretly, my terrible beauty he shall see, and slake my body's flame, but who denies me cursed shall be, and slain, and buried loathsomely, and slimed upon with shame. And darkness fell, and like a sea of stumbling deaths we followed, we, who dared not stay behind, there all night long beneath a cloud. We rose and fell, we struck and bowed. We were the ploughman and the ploughed. Our eyes were red and blind. And some, they said, had touched her side before she fled us there. And some had taken her to bride. And some lain down for her and died, who had not touched her hair, ran to and fro and cursed and cried, and sought her everywhere. Her eyes have feasted on the dead, and small and shapely is her head, and dark and small her mouth, they said, and beautiful to kiss. Her mouth is sinister and red, as blood in moonlight is. Then poets forgot their jeweled words, and cut the sky with glittering swords, and innocent souls turned carrion birds, to perch upon the dead. Sweet daisy fields were drenched with death, the air became a charnel breath, pale stones were splashed with red, green leaves were dappled bright with blood, and fruit trees murdered in the bud. And when at length the dawn came green as twilight from the east, and all that heaving horror ceased, silent was every bird and beast, and that dark voice was gone. No word was there, no song, no bell, no furious tongue that dreamed to tell, only the dead, who rose and fell above the wounded men, and whisperings and wails of pain, blown slowly from the wounded grain, blown slowly from the smoking plain, and silence fallen again, until at dusk, from God knows where, beneath dark birds that filled the air, like one who did not hear or care, under a blood-red cloud, an aged ploughman came alone, and drove his share through flesh and bone, and turned them under to mold and stone. All night long he plowed. Chapter 4. I felt a funeral in my brain. I felt a funeral in my brain, and mourners to and fro kept treading till it seemed that sense was breaking through. And when they all were seated, a service like a drum kept beating till I thought my mind was going numb. And then I heard them lift a box and creak across my soul with those same boots of lead again. Then space began to toll, as all the heavens were a bell, and being but an ear, an eye, and silence, some strange race, wrecked, solitary, here. And then a plank in reason broke, and I dropped down, and hit a world at every plunge, and finished knowing then. Chapter 5. The Haunted Palace. In the greenest of our valleys, by good angels tenanted, once a fair and stately palace, radiant palace reared its head. In the monarch thought's dominion, it stood there, never seraph spread a pinion over fabric half so fair, banners yellow, glorious, golden, on its roof did float and flow. All this was in the olden time long ago, and every gentle air that dallied in that sweet day along the ramparts plumed and pallid, a winged odor went away. Wanderers in that happy valley, through two luminous windows, saw spirits moving musically to a lute's well-tuned law, round about a throne where, sitting, Porphyrogene, in state his glory well befitting, the ruler of the realm was seen, and all with pearl and ruby glowing was the fair palace door, through which came flowing, and sparkling evermore, a troop of echoes, whose sweet duty was but to sing, in voices of surpassing beauty, the wit and wisdom of their king. But evil things, in robes of sorrow, assailed the monarch's high estate. Ah, let us mourn, for never morrow shall dawn upon him, desolate, and round about his home the glory that blushed and bloomed is but a dim remembered story of the old time entombed. And travelers, now, within that valley, through the red-litten windows see vast forms that move fantastically to a discordant melody, while, like a ghastly rapid river, through the pale door, a hideous throng rush out forever, and laugh but smile no more. Chapter 6. The Witch. I have walked a great while over the snow, and I am not tall nor strong. My clothes are wet, and my teeth are set, and the way was hard and long. I have wandered over the fruitful earth, but I never came here before. Oh, lift me over the threshold, and let me in at the door. The cutting wind is a cruel foe. I dare not stand in the blast. My hands are stone, and my voice a groan, and the worst of death is past. I am but a little maiden still. My little white feet are sore. Oh, lift me over the threshold, and let me in at the door. Her voice was the voice that women have, who plead for their heart's desire. She came, and the quivering flame sunk and died in the fire. It never was lit again on my hearth, since I hurried across the floor to lift her over the threshold, and let her in at the door. Chapter 7. The City in the Sea. Lo, death has reared himself a throne, in a strange city lying alone, far down within the dim west, where the good and the bad and the worst and the best have gone to their eternal rest. Their shrines and palaces and towers, time-eaten towers and tremble not, resemble nothing that is ours. Around, by lifting winds forgot, resignedly beneath the sky, the melancholy waters lie. No rays from the holy heaven come down on the long night time of that town, but light from out the lurid sea streams up the turrets silently, gleams up the pinnacles far and free, up domes, up spires, up kingly halls, up fanes, up Babylon-like walls, up shadowy long-forgotten bowers of sculptured ivy and stone flowers, up many and many a marvelous shrine, whose wreathed friezes intertwine the vial, the violet, and the vine. Resignedly beneath the sky, the melancholy waters lie. So blend the turrets and shadows there, that all seem pendulous in air, while from a proud tower in the town, death looks gigantically down. Their open fanes and gaping graves yawn level with the luminous waves, but not the riches there that lie in each idol's diamond eye. Not the gala-jeweled dead tempt the waters from their bed, for no ripples curl, alas, along that wilderness of glass. No swellings tell that winds may be upon some far-off happier sea. No heavings hint that winds have been on seas less hideously serene. But lo, a stir is in the air. The wave, there is a movement there, as if the towers had thrust aside, in slightly sinking, the dull tide, as if their tops had feebly given a void within the filmy heaven. The waves have now a redder glow. The hours are breathing faint and low. And when, amid no earthly moans, down, down that town shall settle hence, hell, rising from 1,000 thrones, shall do it reverence. Chapter 8. Omens. The dead bird, color of a bruise, and smaller than an eye, swollen shut, is king among omens. Who can blame the ants for feasting? Let him cast the first crumb. Tilda. We once tended the oracles. Now we rely on a photograph, a fingerprint, a hand we never saw coming. Tilda. A man draws a chalk outline, first in his mind, around nothing, then around the body of another man. He does this without thinking. Tilda. What can I do about the white room I left behind? What can I do about the great stones I walk among now? What can I do but sing? Even a small cut can sing all day. Tilda. There are entire nights I would take back. Nostalgia is a thin moon, disappearing into a sky like cold, unfeeling iron. Tilda. I dreamed you were a drowned man, crown of phosphorescent seaweed in your hair, water in your shoes. I woke up desperate for air. Tilda. In another dream, I was afield, and you combed through me, searching for something you only thought you had lost. Tilda. What have we left at the altar of sorrow? What blessed thing will we leave tomorrow? Chapter 9. The Apparition. When by thy scorn, O murderess, I am dead, and that thou thinkest thee free from all solicitation from me, then shall my ghost come to thy bed, and thee, famed vestal, in worse arms shall see. Then thy sick taper will begin to wink, and he, whose thou art then, being turd before, will, if thou stir, or pinch to wake him, think thou callest he for more, and in false sleep will from thee shrink. And then, poor aspen wretch, neglected thou, bathed in a cold quicksilver sweat wilt lie, a verier ghost than I. What I will say, I will not tell thee now, lest that preserve thee, and since my love is spent, I had rather thou shouldst painfully repent, than by my threatenings rest still innocent. Final chapter. All Hallows Eve. Be perfect, make it otherwise. Yesterday is torn in shreds. Lightning's thousand sulphur eyes rip apart the breathing beds. Here bones crack and pulverize. Doom creeps in on rubber treads. Countless overwrought housewives, minds unraveling like threads. Try lipstick shades to tranquilize fears of age and general dreads. Sit tight, be perfect, swat the spies. Don't take faucets for fountainheads. Drink tasty antidotes. Otherwise, you and the werewolf, newlyweds.
Thank you for stopping by. The narration 10 most scariest poems ever written. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And happy Halloween. Thank you.